The strength of the US military can be observed through the sheer number of its military bases spread across over 80 countries, totaling about 835 bases worldwide. When it comes to the region that the US military values most, it is undoubtedly the Indo-Pacific region. Not only has the US established the Indo-Pacific Command, Indo-PACOM, in this area to facilitate command and control, but it also seeks to assert dominance over the region. After all, the Indo-Pacific region covers approximately half of the Earth's surface, including all the seas from the US west coast to the western boundary of India and from Antarctica to the Arctic. Furthermore, there are as many as 120 US military bases located in Japan alone. Ranked first in the world, the number of US military bases in South Korea is 73, placing it third globally. Recently, the US signed an agreement to build 4 new military bases in the Philippines. Geographically, the Philippines is located just 1,200 kilometers away from Taiwan, highlighting the US military's strategic focus on future crises in the Taiwan Strait and the Korean Peninsula. It is clear that the US military is preparing for potential conflicts in these regions. If the US military continues operations in the Western Pacific in the future, it will rely heavily on non-domestic bases, such as those in Japan and South Korea, as well as long logistical supply lines. According to data from the US Department of Defense, this strategy reflects their focus on maintaining a global military presence. The US Indo-Pacific Command, Indo-PACOM, is subdivided into 4 main military branches: the Pacific Fleet, the Pacific Air Force, the Army, and the Marine Corps. Among them, the Pacific Fleet is further divided into the 3rd and 7th Fleets, which together comprise around 200 ships, including 5 aircraft carriers, approximately 1,100 fighter jets, and more than 130,000 Navy and Marine Corps personnel, along with civilian staff. The Pacific Marine Corps includes 2 naval reconnaissance units with about 86,000 soldiers and 640 aircraft at their disposal. As for the Pacific Air Force, the Pacific Air Force includes approximately 46,000 Air Force and civilian personnel, along with over 420 aircraft. The Army consists of about 106,000 soldiers and more than 300 aircraft. Notably, the forces under this command also include over 1,200 Special Forces members capable of carrying out specialized operations. The reason for the US military's large-scale deployment in the Indo-Pacific region is to create a more lethal force in the area. In December 2022, during the Reagan National Defense Forum held in California, US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin explained this objective to the attendees. The force being built refers to the US Navy's 7th Fleet. The 7th Fleet is one of the US Navy's Blue Water Fleet, with its command stationed in Yokosuka, Japan. Its bases include Okinawa, Kanagawa, Busan, and Ulsan in South Korea, as well as Singapore, the Philippines, and other locations. It is currently the largest overseas forward-deployed force of the US military. The primary missions of the 7th Fleet include intimidating enemy nations, cooperating with allies to protect sea lanes, assisting US partner territories, and, when necessary, using force. It also frequently serves as the US Navy's mobile fleet for overseas military operations. As a result, the 7th Fleet is also referred to by allied nations as the Shield of Freedom in the Western Pacific, and is considered the most powerful naval and air force in Asia. The 7th Fleet has a rich history. During World War II in 1941, when battles erupted in the Pacific Theater, the US reorganized its Western Pacific Fleet into the 7th Fleet in March 1943. In January 1947, the fleet was renamed the US Pacific Fleet. In August 1949, it was designated as the 7th Task Force. It wasn't until February 1950 that it officially reverted to its original name, the 7th Fleet, which it continues to use to this day. In the 1998 Taiwan Strait Crisis, the US 7th Fleet provided escort for Taiwanese Navy supply ships, and it also participated in the Gulf War in 1991. Historically, the US Navy's 7th Fleet has played an important role in the Taiwan Strait region. During the Cold War, with the deployment of US forces in Taiwan, the 7th Fleet's task force used the Zuoying Naval Base in Kaohsiung as a point of supply, transporting goods to Taiwan through Kaohsiung Port, until the severing of diplomatic ties between the US and Taiwan in the late 1970s. In 2010, amidst rising tensions on the Korean peninsula, the 7th Fleet worked to increase its influence in the region. From a current perspective, the three most likely areas for military conflict within the 7th Fleet's area of operations are the South China Sea, the Korean peninsula, and the Taiwan Strait. This is why the US military has long sought to maintain a strong force in the Indo-Pacific region. The operational jurisdiction of the 7th Fleet covers the entire Indo-Pacific area, which will be further explained shortly. According to the latest aircraft carrier strike group deployment data, the current US 7th Fleet consists of approximately 50 to 60 ships, 350 aircraft, and a full fleet complement of 60,000 personnel, including 38,000 Navy sailors and 22,000 Marine Corps personnel. The fleet typically maintains around 20,000 active duty personnel. The primary combat force is usually composed of an aircraft carrier strike group led by the USS George Washington aircraft carrier, supplemented by land-based aviation and amphibious forces. When necessary, additional ships can be drawn from the 3rd Fleet or other units to bolster the force. The fleet is typically commanded from a flagship with 1 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 3 to 4 missile-equipped cruisers, 18 to 20 missile destroyers, and frigates. The fleet's capabilities are truly impressive, with top-of-the-line configurations across various ship types. For example, the Blue Ridge Command Ship has a full displacement of 18,372 tons, a cruising speed of 16 knots, and a range of 13,000 nautical miles. It is equipped with 13 TA-980U satellite phone terminals for communication. The Blue Ridge Command Ship is linked to over 70 transmitters and more than 100 receivers, and it is connected to 3 satellite communication systems. This allows it to transmit information at a speed of 3,000 words per second, providing synchronized communications for the fleet. It is capable of commanding air, anti-submarine, anti-ship forces, and landing forces during naval operations. As the flagship of the 7th Fleet, it plays a critical role in coordinating these efforts. For the 7th Fleet, the combination of surface ships and naval aviation alone exceeds the entire naval strength of most other nations. And this is not even the full extent of the 7th Fleet's power, as it also possesses a substantial submarine force. The 7th Fleet's submarine force includes the 7th Submarine Strike Group, which operates 3 Los Angeles-class nuclear-powered attack submarines capable of launching various Tomahawk missiles and precision strike weapons. The 1st Submarine Squadron also consists of 3 Los Angeles-class submarines, with newer and older models. Additionally, there are 3 Virginia-class nuclear-powered attack submarines, with a permanent fleet of 8 submarines assigned to the 7th Submarine Squadron. The 7th Fleet's submarine power is reinforced by 7 Los Angeles-class nuclear-powered submarines, forming the backbone of its maritime strike capabilities, further solidifying its naval superiority in the region. The 7th Fleet also operates 3 Seawolf-class attack nuclear submarines, along with the 17th and 19th Submarine Squadrons, each consisting of 10 Ohio-class strategic missile nuclear submarines. This formidable submarine force totals over 30 of the latest nuclear-powered submarines, capable of executing both tactical strikes and strategic nuclear attacks. With such power, it is hard to find any country that can compare. Furthermore, the 7th Fleet is the last US Navy fleet to operate conventionally powered aircraft carriers and also the last to equip nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. This configuration is primarily due to the fleet's home base in Japan, the only country in the world that has ever been subjected to a nuclear attack. The Japanese public generally holds negative views towards nuclear weapons and military systems powered by nuclear energy. To accommodate these sentiments and respect the public perception in Japan, the Japanese Navy has consistently used conventionally powered aircraft carriers as the core of the 7th Fleet. However, since the Shokaku was decommissioned in 2008, the USS George Washington aircraft carrier took over the role, becoming the first nuclear-powered carrier in the 7th Fleet. The nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, stationed in Japan, is a key part of the 7th Fleet's operations. The area of responsibility for the 7th Fleet stretches from the international dateline in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean to the west, covering the Red Sea and the eastern coast of Africa, extending southward to Antarctica, and reaching as far north as the Bering Strait. This operational area spans approximately 130 million square kilometers, about 14 times the size of the United States mainland, and is home to roughly half of the world's population. The first island chain, consisting of the Ryukyu Islands, Taiwan, the Philippines, and the Sulu Archipelago, is a major area of deployment for the 7th Fleet. Located to the south of the Korean Peninsula, South Korea is sometimes considered part of the first island chain as well. In addition to Japan and South Korea, another strategically significant location within the Pacific is Guam, which, though the smallest inhabited US territory in the Pacific, is one of the most fortified military bases for the US military's deployment in the region. Guam holds a unique strategic position as a key pillar in the US Pacific defense line. It serves as a launchpad for US military operations targeting Japan, North Korea, and Taiwan. The US Air Force is stationed at Andersen Air Force Base, which acts as its headquarters on the island. The base is home to the 36th Wing and occupies nearly 18,000 acres, capable of hosting up to 193 aircraft. The US Air Force is the primary user of this base, utilizing it as a transit hub to support forces operating in the surrounding regions and to assist air-to-air refueling operations, enabling aircraft to traverse the vast expanse of the Pacific. The US Navy also maintains a presence on Guam, with facilities at Apra Harbor, the farthest western port in the United States. US naval vessels depart from here, reaching the western edge of the Pacific within 4 days, much faster than from the Pacific Fleet's primary base in Pearl Harbor, which takes 19 days to reach the same location. Aircraft departing from Guam to the Asian mainland are also able to do so more swiftly and efficiently than from the US mainland. From a geopolitical and strategic perspective, the US military views Guam as a critical asset in its operations across the Pacific and into Asia, positioning it as a vital staging point for military power projection in the region. Guam is strategically positioned to support operations along the Asian coastline, connecting eastward to Hawaii and the US mainland, making it an ideal forward base and troop projection center. To the south, it connects with Southeast Asia and Oceania, while to the north it links to Japan and the Korean Peninsula, facilitating support for operations on both fronts. Additionally, US forces stationed on Guam enjoy a higher level of security compared to those in South Korea and Japan, as the latter are within North Korea's missile strike range, whereas Guam lies outside of it. Since the Cold War, Guam has served as the US Navy's first overseas base, providing support for the Polaris submarine-launched ballistic missiles, SLBMs. Its location made it an essential asset for the US in maintaining strategic deterrence and projecting military power across the Pacific, while also offering a safer and more secure position compared to bases in the more vulnerable Korean and Japanese territories. This strategic advantage has solidified Guam's role as a critical hub for US military operations in the region. Guam has long provided vital communication and intelligence support for the US military. During the Vietnam War, B-52 bombers flew from Guam to the Indochina Peninsula to carry out bombing missions. After the signing of the Paris Peace Accords in 1973, US minesweepers also set sail from Guam to clear mines off North Vietnam. Following the end of the Cold War, the US scaled down its military presence on Guam to adapt to strategic changes, closing the Navy Air Station in 1995 and reducing naval activities on the island. However, after 2000, the US gradually increased its military presence, with advanced weaponry and equipment being deployed year by year. Today, the island hosts military forces comparable to a small nation. It's undeniable that the US military in the Indo-Pacific region benefits from a vast network of non-domestic bases, complemented by the formidable 7th Fleet. This combination of strength, including the 7th Fleet's naval capabilities, makes the US Navy an unparalleled force. The US Navy's power is so vast that it can claim second place globally without challenge, even in comparison to the Russian Navy, which inherited much of the Soviet Union's military legacy. Despite this, the total assets of the Russian Navy still fall far short when compared to the might of the US Navy's 7th Fleet, whether in terms of fleet size or capabilities. The US Navy's 7th Fleet is unmatched in both quantity and quality, far surpassing any other naval force, including Western allies like the UK. The UK, for instance, has long since lost the ability to deploy heavy aircraft carriers, and its current carrier is still waiting for its full complement of carrier-based aircraft, a situation that's rather embarrassing. In contrast, the 7th Fleet is backed by the US Navy's Pacific 3rd Fleet and 5th Fleet, which can provide aircraft carrier support during wartime, enabling the 7th Fleet to quickly form 2 carrier strike groups. This ability gives the US Navy a massive advantage, making it nearly impossible for any global naval or air force to challenge it in a full-scale, open-ocean confrontation. At present, the only significant deterrent to the 7th Fleet's dominance is the strategic use of anti-ship and anti-aircraft capabilities, such as stealthy aircraft for defensive counterattacks, which is a reliable and mature approach. That concludes this discussion on the US military's deployment in the Indo-Pacific region and the power of the 7th Fleet. If anyone has more to add or would like to discuss further, feel free to leave comments below. See you in the next video. How do you feel about the power of the US 7th Fleet? If anyone has any more information to share or would like to discuss further, please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.